Welcome everyone to Encore's presentation on Dynamics Showcase. Joining me today, I have Rico Damon and myself, Tracy. We're going to be doing the presentation or the demo of GP and how you do common functions in Business Central, Dynamics 365 Business Central. And we also have Tess, our wonderful Tess, with us as well. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we will try and address them after we do the presentation. As well, if you have something you'd like to see in the application, you can also type that in and Tess will be taking those questions at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. So introductions, which I just did, and between us all, I think we have about 40 years experience in the dynamic space. So I think you're in good hands. Why we wanted to present this subject today is, maybe you're thinking about transitioning from Dynamics GP to Dynamics 365 Business Central. In the next few months, maybe you're planning it out as an initiative for next year. Maybe you're just curious because you've been hearing a lot about Dynamics 365 Business Central and you kind of want to know, gee, I've got some great skills and a lot of efficiency and I know how to use Dynamics GP and what does that look like in Business Central? So we thought it would be kind of fun to take you through a tour of some of these common business processes that you do every day in one application, Microsoft application, and see what that looks like in another Microsoft application. Now, I'm going to ask that you give me a little bit of a bit of a break. It's been about 18 years since I implemented Dynamics GP. For those of you who know me, I'm kind of working on the customer side, the inside sales side, helping customers learn more about the Dynamics world, and I don't do implementations anymore. So, but Rico is amazing and fantastic, and he knows everything about Business Central inside and out. So we're in very good hands, and I think we'll get through this. We'll get through this within the hour. We will get through it. Rico seems to think that an hour is not going to be long enough, and I'm thinking I think we'll be done sooner than an hour. So we'll get started. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is a journal entry, which is pretty straightforward. Most of us have to do a journal entry sometime during the day or the month. Maybe it's at month end we're doing some journal entries. And again, I've got my screen in Dynamics GP that I could go and do a journal entry. I've actually put a journal entry in here already. I'm going to scroll to that and go through something that I did, a very simple entry. And then I've got another really simple entry here, and we're going to go and do a new entry here. So I've got a few journal entries in this batch GP webinar, and I can go through the fields, and I put my reference in here. And again, I'm going to go down here to my accounts, and I know that I'm doing a lot of work right now in our travel expenses, trying to catch up from last year. So I'm going to go ahead and put a transaction amount in here. And I know I want this to go to accrued because I'm accruing for something that's going to be coming up. So I'm going to go to my accrued expenses. There we go. A very simple entry. And again, if I wanted to put that distribution reference in there, I could do that as well. So again, I've got something really simple here, and I can go ahead and say save. Another way to get a journal entry in is to do copy and paste. So I've got my template here, and I'm going to simply go and copy that and go back into my journal entry here and say paste. Yay, it worked. For those of you who have tried it before and it doesn't work, it's really kind of handy because it has a document that prints out, lets you know where your errors are. I could speak. See, I'm so nervous doing this. Here we go. So we've got our couple of journal entries, Rico, that I've done. So I will hand it back over to you to show how we would do that in Business Central.
Okay, perfect. So let me get my screen. over, and now you see Business Central. If you have seen our other demonstration that we did for the last couple of weeks, we were doing this all in Business Central in the business owner mode. Now today I changed myself to be in the accountant mode, so you can see the view here is a little bit different than before, but in general it's the same thing. But I don't want to go over this again. What I want to do today now is to go and enter a journal, just like Tracy did, and to give you an idea what it could look like on the Business Central side of things. So first of all, I want to start with something that looks pretty familiar with you. This is the journal in the shortened version. So I think it looks pretty familiar to what you just saw. Like you have a batch name, you have a document number, you have your posting date specified, and then in the lines you would see the actual accounts. You would see the account name. You can override the description here. So let's say it is a cash, like a transfer, and you can store the information here. So it is your description, you have your debits and your credits, and if there were dimensions applied, all that kind of good stuff would also come over here. And if I would go to the next document, all I need to do is go to the next document number, and it would show me the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And if I would enter a new one, I would simply click new document number. It would create a new document for me. So I got like the next number from the sequence. It's auto-generated, and I can start again entering wages. So I just type in what account I want to use. So I want to use the wages account, and I want to enter a $300 debit. And I can overwrite the description if I want to. Let's say it's December 2020. And then I would go to the next line. And a similar thing that you saw in GP is that it would already populate like the credit amount to make sure that the total balance is already like it would balance in the end, but you don't need to accept this amount. So let's say I have another one where it's for salaries. So I want to enter the number manually because I know the number, so I can type it in right now. So it's salaries, December 2020, just because I want it that way, and I just make it $500 in the debit, and the credit will disappear. And now, of course, if I go to the next line, it will add the numbers together, and now I can put them in my accrual account.
Rico, I really liked that, how when you went to account number, you could type in the name, you could type in anything and it came up. That was really cool.
Yeah, that is why I put it in here, because that's one of the key features. You don't need to know the account numbers and you need to scroll through lists. All you need to do is basically start typing and it will shrink the list. Like as soon as I go in there or remove things, it will make it larger or bigger depending on my filter. I think that's one of the great features. Thanks for pointing this out again. For me, it's so natural. Okay, so this is one way of entering a journal. Why can, like when I say this is one way, there must be another one. So let me go to another journal. Let me go to Rico's batch because I prepared another one. And let me change my view to a more column view. And for those of you who have been attending my other presentation, you kind of know this already, where in like the opposite, like the difference between the one view and this one is I don't have a header now. So I can have many documents all in the same view. And I can have also the balance account sitting in one line. So I don't need to break it down into multiple lines. So what I can do from here, and I prepared something similar to Tracy, is I can actually copy and paste. Of course, I could enter it manually as well, but I can copy and paste from Excel to here. And it's just a Control V, like the normal stuff that you would do on Excel, Word, or wherever. And you would now have different invoices with different document numbers. A GL account is in here, so this is my revenue account. I have the amount copied over and I have my customer associated to that. And for those of you who know about the concept of dimensions or segments as they are in GP, I can also copy in the segments here. So that's all doable. And now I could continue. If it was a currency thing, I could also update the currency and it would do all the calculation in the background. And if I feel I want to modify what I have in here, I can still do that. So even if I have already entered all these lines in here and I want to modify them all in once, instead of doing it like line by line by line, I can export this again to Excel, edit in Excel, and it would open this very batch in Excel for me. Give me a second here. So it's downloading the file. So now, since it's all Microsoft Office 365 connected, it will open the file. I will hit Enable Editing. And now it will connect with my credentials to Business Central to make sure that I am who I am and I'm allowed to do that. It's verifying my authentication. And now it's connecting the data. And in a second, I will see all the lines from a journal. And this function doesn't matter if you're talking about 5 lines or 5,000 lines. The amount, like the time itself, will be the same thing. So what I can do now is I could go to my, like all the fields that I have in here, I could populate all these fields. All I want to do right now is -200 and then make this just sequence or whatever you have, right? So it could be anything. And all I need to do now is to publish this back to Business Central. Writing data, publish successful. And now I can close my Excel. Yes, whatever. You can save it or not save it. It doesn't really matter. So if I would refresh this page here with F5, we would have all the numbers in here. So it's as easy as that to even modify an existing journal in Business Central. And that was my first piece of how to enter a journal in Business Central. So back over to you, Tracy.
Well, that makes accounting really exciting. That looked like a lot of fun.
It is.
All right, well, let's go on to our next topic. We're going to talk about a couple ideas I'm going to go through in this example is I've got a situation where I'm running a report and I notice that someone has actually gone and created another GL account for travel. And you can see here that they didn't quite follow our convention of it's supposed to be 6520 for travel, and they have my other departments, and someone went ahead and created an account 6529. Well, Rico, and there's been transactions posted. So I'm going to go ahead and have a look at this. So I'm going to go actually to account maintenance, and I'm going to look this up. And I see here, okay, yeah, they went and created that. And we can see here that indeed there is a transaction that's been posted to this. So again, from back on the screen, you can see I can go and change the description, but I can't go and change that actual account number. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I do know that I do have something called Professional Services Tools Library here in Dynamics GP. So I think I'm going to go ahead and have a look at that and see if I can go and make that change. So I'll go over there, and I do see that there is a tool in here, Financial Tools Account Modifier Combiner, that I could use to go and fix that. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I could go and do that. So that would be one way of going and seeing how we can go and fix a transaction that there was an account created, something was posted against it, and now I need to go and change that. And again, I think this can happen quite often, Rico, with clients where they've got an account and business changes, or they didn't allow enough room for growth in a certain range of accounts. So in GP, we do have a tool that allows you to be able to do that. How would you do that in Business Central?
That actually is a good question, and of course I prepared something for that. I'm feeling a little bit like a chef here, like a TV chef. Um, so of course, we have the same kind of troubles, and but to be honest, in Business Central, it's way easier to change the records. So for example, to pick that example here in my chart of accounts, which is by the way also like a trial balance. Let's say I want to create another banking account here, and I want to follow like the 100 steps, so I can see there is the 300 left in between. And I have this account here, which has transactions. So if I drill down, I can see there is a couple of transactions already associated to this GL account number. And I would like to actually rename this account to 11300 and then have enough space for another 11400, which would be like my new bank account. So I can totally do that. All I need to do is go into my account. I have my number up here. All I need to do is to change that to 300. And now the system will ask me, do you want to rename the record? Of course, I would say yes. And as soon as I do that, the system will find all the spots where this account has been used in the background and will rename these spots as well. That means all my history is moved over as well. And this does not only apply to my GL account, this would also apply to dimensions. So if I decide to rename a dimension value equals to one of your segments, same concept, it would rename this one as well. So now if I go to my ledgers, which are associated to my newly renamed 11300 account, they also tie to my 11300 account. So I moved all the history by just renaming GL account. I think that's quite easy, isn't it?
Wow, Rico, that is awesome. And can you stay on that page that you're on right now? I think
Sure.
that was fantastic, that master records and be able to update that. And then you said for dimensions as well, and I'm sure it's for all the master records, the customer ID, name, etc.
Yes.
Because we have the same challenge in Dynamics GP. Once you create that master record, you have to use a tool to go and fix that. So that was awesome. I really, really like that feature. Um, I I see here, like right where you are, you see the trial balance like live, like just from this screen. That's wow. I wish we had that in GP.
Yep. And you know what? I can even do more in here. Like, what else could I do here? Maybe we could pull in some categories to show us where these accounts, like how they are grouped, right? So we have these begin totals and these end totals, but wouldn't it be awesome to see like a category and a subcategory here? And I can totally modify my screen here, super easy. I just personalize it. And now I can add additional fields here. Come on, of course, it's the demo. Here we go. So let's say I want to add like additional fields here. And I talked about the categories. So maybe just start typing. Okay, here we go. We have account category and subcategory. I think it would be a great idea to put them here to have like the account category. So it would tell me if it's an asset or liability or in like in revenue or in COGS account. And if I want to see even more, I have subcategories in Business Central. And now I can see that for the assets, I have the cash, accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, all these kind of things I can see already in here. It's as easy as that to enter new fields on tables, but I can do that same thing also on the card view. So let's say I didn't like the view of the card because it contained way too many details. I could go here and, for example, say, I don't even know what this field is and I don't care. So just go here and hide it. And then there is another option that we have here. You can see this show more. So just watch what happens when I click on this field. It actually shows me additional fields. Like this field, the new page was not here before, right? So you can see that. So I can actually hide fields. And if I want to see them, they are still visible if I just click on this show more field. So what I can do is I can say this debit and credit, I want to make this only visible when I click the show more. And then the next feature, which is kind of cool, is if you want to collapse this entire group, you see a couple of fields which are still visible up here, even if it's collapsed. So we can see here that the number is still visible, the name, the account type, and the balance. So If I want to make sure that a certain field is only visible when it's collapsed, I can make the account subcategory, for example, visible by show when it's collapsed. So now, since this is the setup, if I collapse it, I would also see the account subcategory populated here, even when it's collapsed. That's I think it's a super nice feature if you want to save space on your screen and you still want to have access to all the details that you need.
Yeah, Rico, that user interface is like amazingly configurable. And I think for people who are new to Business Central, that really shortens the learning curve. That's amazing.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll go on to our next item.
Yes, please. So what else do you have in your bucket list that you would like to see on our end?
All right. Well, I'm going to go through, I'm going to show my screen. And you were showing modifying columns. I can't really do that modifying columns on certain things I can. So in list views, I can change columns, or for example, in Smart List, I can go in. Uh, I can't do that kind of dragging and dropping that you were doing in Smart List. I actually have to go into the column field here and go and move things around. So I really like that ease of use. And for those of you that are on the webinar that use list views, in the list views, I'm not going to go into them right now, but you can drag and drop the columns again in there. So that's fairly comparable there. All right, I'm going to go through a challenge I'm having right now, Rico, is, again, we're going to go look at that in our dimensions and talking about what we have out of the box with Dynamics GP. And we know we have a segmented chart of accounts for Dynamics GP. And we also have, I've got a task of right now, we've been doing a lot of travel for trade shows, and there's some more trade shows coming up next year, and we really want to be able to understand that data a little bit better. And right now we're putting it into these accounts that, sure, they're departmentalized and we know their travel, but we really don't know exactly what's going on as far as some of this, the detail in here. So I was trying to figure out a way of, how am I going to go and work that out? And I was going to put some more description in here. I was thinking about other ways of handling it. And we had some payables information that came in. This one was a journal entry. There's some AP transactions that came in as well. And so I was thinking, well, how can I really go, and if I don't want to use analytical accounting, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to just dump this out to Excel and look at it in Excel and then kind of break it down and figure out where those transactions can be, how they can be grouped easily. So I was kind of wondering if you had something where, again, trade shows or different projects come up and they're intermittent and they're throughout the year. And, I really want a way to be able to analyze that and be able to see things from a different perspective a lot easier, a way to see the data easier. Do you have something that you can show? Because other than doing analytical accounting, these transitory things, I would have to go in, for example, if I go and look at our account maintenance window, and I brought up that 300652000, which was one of my travel accounts for the sales department, which is Department 300, again, I have to really go into doing things a lot more in detail. And I think this is the entry that came from accounts payable. And we can see that I put some more reference in there, but that's kind of clunky.
Yeah, it feels not the easiest thing in the world, but to be honest, it feels like what you would need is like a hashtag for your transactions, right? So something
Yeah.
where you have like you enter something and then you just hashtag it and say, okay, now I want to be able to find everything that has this hashtag. And you know what? That's what we do with dimensions. So of course we use dimensions as you use them, for example, for departments. So classic with our implementations is we have a department dimension, we have a jobs dimension potentially, maybe we have a customer region and whatnot. But you gave a good example, a trade show. So let's say we have these trade shows, and I want to be able to maintain these values, and they come up. And once the trade show is gone, you will never have any additional transactions for this trade show again, right? So instead of creating like a new GL account to say travel expense for trade show spring 2020 and then another one for trade show fall 2020, we would just create one of those hashtags, and once we don't need it anymore, we just terminate it. So what we do is we go into our dimensions. It's a setup. If I could type, that would help a lot. So dimensions. And now you would see a thing that we as consultants usually help you with in the beginning. So you can see that I have a dimension for jobs. So for jobs, I have a couple of dimension values. And now you can see that these are all my jobs. But I also have a dimension which I already set up for trade shows. So this is a common thing that we do in dimension values. We have like a dimension value for the trade show in fall 2019. Then we had one in spring 2019, and we had one for spring 2020. What you can see here is that I blocked those two. So what if I have a new thing that I need to prepare, which is called fall 2020 trade show. And now since spring is already over, the trade show is done, I would just block it, right? So I would just go here, block this one, and I would go back to my journal. And now you would see how easy it is to enter this hashtag against my transactions. So I go to my journal. I just set up a new trade show. It took me like a second to do that. It was more explaining than actually doing here. So let's say this line item here was associated to a specific trade show. You can see, of course, where did I put it? I put it in the very end. I have this dimension as a column here. And if I go here and do the drop down, all I can see is the trade show that is still active. All the other ones are still there in the background, and any transaction that still has this dimension value would be available for reporting, but I can't create any new transactions with this dimension. So all I need to do is select this one, and now it's part of my transaction. It's hashtagged. So if I want to post this and run a report on that, I would totally be able to report on my trade show. Don't matter on what account. It's any account in your entire chart of accounts, any master record, any subledger, any ledger that is associated with that one will have this hashtag. So you can run your analysis on this trade show everywhere. So when I'm talking about these dimensions, I want to give you a little bit of an insight what you can do with dimensions and how you could analyze them. So if I would go out of here for now, and if I go to my analysis views, this one, I have prepared something where I have a couple of more ledgers already prepared. And this is my example is my job sales. So let's say I have recorded all my sales that I did during the year against a particular job. But at the same time, I also figured out that on a specific job, multiple departments work. So I want to be able to run a report to show me per job how much revenue was done by a specific department, like in a pivot table. And instead of exporting all the data and running like an Excel on that, I can totally do that all in here. So what I want to do, sorry, that was the wrong button. I want to do an analysis by dimension. So what I want to do is I want to see in my lines my jobs. Since I have this view already prepared, I want to see my jobs in the lines, and in my columns. Today I don't want to see periods, but I want to see my my departments. So let's say I want to see all my revenues that I did from January this year to June this year. So I would just in period 1 to period 6, this would translate to an actual date filter. And all I need to do now is click on show matrix. And it would show me exactly what I was looking for. Show me the jobs and show me the departments. if I would go and say, show me the revenue only for P1, I can even see a more detailed view that I don't have like records for every single month, and it will still show up in here. So every job has a transaction, but not by every department. So I think that's a super easy way to report on these what are called dimensions, but I refer to them as hashtags because that's really what they are. They are tagging your transactions, and you would be able to build reports based on that.
Wow, Reiko, that's awesome. So that would really help me in those kind of like intermittent or temporary projects or trade shows or events
Yeah,
that come up and I want to track costs by department.
correct. Yeah, it's exactly the same concept with jobs, right? A job has, per definition, has an end, and once the job is ended, you want to make sure that you don't track cost against it anymore. Like if somebody is
Right,
coming late, you maybe at least want to know that he was coming late. The job is already closed.
right. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was what I could tell you about dimensions, and I hope that would help you with your trade show and the analysis for that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay. All right, let's go on to our next common item that we would be doing on a daily basis as the accounting team, as the finance team, and that's entering AP invoices. So for us, we're not, some things we do POs, but a lot of things we don't do POs for. So we're just going to go in and we do payables transaction entry. And when we go and enter information up, again, to hit back on that trade show thing, I've got information about this and I want to capture that. So again, I've got the invoice from the supplier. I could go and attach that invoice and see that, but maybe there's specific information I want to communicate. Maybe it's internally or I want to make a record of that. And again, I could have a Word document or something that I could go and attach there if I wanted to do that. You can have these attachments that you do that again can have a date that they're no longer available, so you can put that kind of that have that library function. But sometimes I just want to have some more information in here, and all I can really put in here is who I bought it from and document number and the amount. And then I can go to distributions. Now in distributions, I have that ability to kind of put some additional information in here. And I was putting this, okay, for this one, it was for 2 trade shows, 4 trade shows, 3 trade shows, etc. And there's my distributions. So it would be nice to be able to have something a little bit more explanatory without having to do a bunch of attachments there. But yeah, it's and I can only enter again if I wanted, and we do that. We have POs where we do a purchase order for an inventory item or a purchase order for fixed assets. But our payables transactions we use for when we don't have, for example, a purchase order. It's not for inventory. So how would I kind of work that through in Business Central?
Yep, I totally have something for you on in this regards. So let me share my screen again. And we could, of course, we could do it in a journal as well. Like that's the thing that I just demoed before. But since when we get purchase invoices, we would have an invoice which is like from the structure pretty much the same thing as you get like a proper invoice. So when you create a new purchase invoice, when you get it, you usually have like header information, then you have a couple of lines, which I think is what you do in distributions. And then there is like bottom information where like you have the totals and who to pay it to and all that kind of stuff. So when we enter a new invoice, of course, I can go and start typing my vendor name, my vendor number, or I can just browse in here. So I'm selecting my Fabricam vendor, which is like my favorite demo vendor. I can enter like the invoice number. It must be unique per vendor, so this prevents me from having duplicate entries there. Again, here is the show more. If I want to enter more information, I could totally do that. Usually I don't need that. That's why I usually work with this kind of shortened view here. And now let's go over to our what you would call distribution, what we would call the line items. So in the line, you can see I have different types. I can not only record GLs, so let me just record, keeping like staying with the the example of a trade show, let's say I have travel expenses that I need to enter against this. I can get like in quantity and then have like $300. And I maybe want to put in, this is the hotel for management. So it's like $600 for that. Let's say on the same invoice, I don't know what this company is, but let's say on the same invoice, this company would charge me for a table that I want to buy for this trade show. So I can also select item, and now I can get a desk because I need a desk on my trade show, right? So I can do and select, I want to order one desk, and since it's an item, it already has like populated pricing. This comes all with the inventory module. I can put that right here on the invoice. Let's say there is a freight associated to that, so I can go and again do a GL account and associate a freight. And again, this is like $55. And now let's go really crazy. Let's say for this trade show, we also need a car. So I set up a fixed asset in my system because I want to reuse it, but I buy it right now. So I want to make sure that it's all associated to this thing. So I want to buy a blue Ford Mustang. So what I do is I can select my fixed assets here, and I can say I'm buying a Ford Mustang from here, $60,000. I don't even know if this is real, but you know, you get the idea. So I can enter like all kind of different things on my invoice, and I can also provide the header description. I think that's what you would have on your site, like on the not distribution one. Um,
Yeah, for sure. And then also you have the ability to do your comments on those lines as well,
Correct.
the
Like
line items.
I can have the line items with the comments. I can do
Hmm.
attachments here. Um, I can leave comments. I can have incoming documents. There's tons of things where I can still attach all the pieces. But I think the main thing that kind of struggled me a little bit when I saw you was that you couldn't see all this all in one view. You had to go to the first one, then you had to go to distribution to find all the pieces, right? So that's
Definitely.
all on the
And
invoice
you could
level.
do everything on one form. I wouldn't be able to do a combination of fixed assets, inventory items, and GL accounts all on the same thing. So awesome, awesome. That's super valuable, super useful for sure.
Yeah, and if I would attempt to post this guy, since we have to preview posting, I can totally do that. So it's not really posting right now, but it would already tell me, even though I'm not selecting a GL account, it would tell me which GL accounts would be affected if I post this invoice. So if I would go down here, I would not only see, of course, my two GL accounts that I selected, but I would also see like the purchase account. I would see my travel, I see my expenses, I see the taxes and everything that's related to that. All the subledgers and everything will be translated. So you can double check before you post if the GL account, which will be used when you post the invoice, is correct. So you still have full control over the entire thing, even though you're not using the GLs directly on the line levels.
Great. Thanks, Rico. So since we're talking about purchasing something, we were in transaction entry. Let's
Yeah,
go ahead and talk about purchase orders. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll go through doing a purchase order, and then we'll talk about how we would do that in Business Central.
perfect.
Great. So I'm going to go to purchase order entry. And again, Rico, just to touch on the previous one, so if I was going to order inventory or fixed assets or buying those things, I would do that in here.
Mhm.
And in this example here, I'm using my favorite vendor, which is Ace Travel, and I had to go and purchase something from them. So I did a standard purchase order. Again, we got different purchase order types, and I'm selecting an item. I could have a purchase order for inventory items or non-inventory, so either one would be fine. And at this point here, I would go ahead and email off that purchase order to the supplier. or print it off and mail it if I was doing it that way, but probably I'd be emailing it. And so I'd create that. Now, at this particular moment, I'm not doing anything after that. But again, I could bring up this purchase order, or I could go into a separate screen to do the receiving and invoice matching. But again, it's a different screen. So I'll just walk you through that. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and said I wanted to receive the PO, many ways I can get to the screen. So typically I wouldn't be in here. I'd be either looking at a list of POs that need to be received, or I would just go straight to this screen here, which is the receiving transaction entry window. So again, it's a window where I'm going to go ahead and select the purchase order and decide what I need to receive. And maybe I'm going to do receiving and invoice matching at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and go back out of here because we're not going to go ahead and receive that. But again, I could do shipment and invoice, or maybe just shipment. So again, maybe I don't have the invoice number again. Different types of screens. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I'm not going to go and receive this. Just so you can see that we do have in Dynamics, if we go into transactions and purchasing, we have an order entry window, receiving transactions, and enter and match invoices. And so they are functionally different screens. So my purchase order, again, I can do two-way matching or three-way matching. Can you kind of show us in Business Central like what you would do there for purchase orders?
Yes, absolutely. So what you just described is really depending on the process. So in Business Central, we have multiple ways to do that. So first of all, you still can do the same thing that you just do. Like you have a purchase order, which is usually done by a purchase manager. You would create it, you would send it out. Then a couple of days later, the goods arrive. So you have a warehouse manager or warehouse worker who basically pulls the lines from all the purchase orders which are about to be received. And then the next step could be a person that is sitting in AP who needs to pull in the lines from all the receipts. So this three-way matching can still happen in Business Central, but we also have a shortcut. So I can totally show you how you could create those. So let's go and create a purchase order on our site. So I would go here, create a new purchase order, again using my same favorite vendor, Fabricam. Just typing in Fabricam, it would populate all the details that I would need. I don't need all the other pieces. I don't need invoice number and stuff like that right now. But I want to receive, or I want a purchase order for an Essence desk. So again, I want to buy this desk here. So now I can say, where do I want to receive it to? That's all easy enough. So I want to receive this guy against my Wayne warehouse. I want to enter that I want to have it like once. And then in here, you can already see in the columns that I could receive directly from the PO. Again, this would be a shortcut, just saying, what if you want to open the purchase order and want to receive it directly from here? You can totally do that. You would enter all the information that you need. Maybe you would enter a vendor shipment number. So that's the delivery note. And then you would go here, posting, and you can select if you want to receive invoice or receive an invoice. Right now, I only want to receive the products, and it would go into my inventory, and the number moves from quantity to receive to quantity received. And by the way, if you had a purchase order for 100 and you want to receive 20 or 1 or 80 or whatever, you can do that. Like anything that's lower than the actual quantity can be received. And even if it exceeds, there's a new feature in Business Central which allows you to over-receive quantities under certain circumstances. So, but again, that's way too detailed for now. So let's say the next piece that we wanted to do is invoice it. I could go either to my invoice now and pull in the lines similar to what you would do, like the two-way match or three-way match, but I could also post a purchase order directly from here. So I could again go here. I need to enter an invoice number, of course. So this is a weird invoice number, but it is one. So posting, post, And now I could invoice everything that has been received before. So this would make sure that I'm not posting anything in my invoices which is not in real, which has not been received before. So, and now I could go to my posted invoice and I would see everything that I posted in my posted document. But as I said, this was just a shortcut. I have another way of doing it, and I want to show you that just to give you a reference, because this is sometimes not working for you if you are if you have these segregation of duty. Again, my favorite Fabricam vendor, my item. I want to receive the Ascent desk. And this time I'm not receiving this against my main warehouse. I'm receiving this actually against my real warehouse. So now I could even go and specify the bin already. But what I can do now is either directly from here saying, create me a warehouse receipt. So it would create a warehouse receipt for me. So the guys in the warehouse just need to pick it up once the products arrive. Or what I can also do is release the document. This will make sure that, did I not? Oh, I didn't enter a quantity. Sorry about that. Release the document. So now this purchase order is released. That means it is available for my warehouse receipt guys to find it. So if I go to warehouse receipts, so I would be like in the warehouse right now, warehouse receipts. I would create a new one. Auto-generated number for my warehouse. And now I could go and process, get source documents. And now I would see all the purchase orders which are outstanding and await receiving. So I would just click here and now I can process my, my stuff from here. So same concept, you could go and create this from a warehouse receipt. Once it's received, you would go to the invoice and pull in the received lines. So we could do the same thing as in GP. We could do it in a
Okay,
shortcut. It depends on the process, and that's what we usually figure out during our analysis.
great, awesome. Thanks, Rico. Thanks for taking us through that.
No worries.
All right, I'm going to switch back over to me, and we're going to go into our next topic, which is modifying layouts of documents. So this would be documents that could be vendor facing or they could be customer facing. There's a couple of things that in GP which are newer to some people. They came out many, many versions ago, but the ability to do word templates. So again, in this particular one, I wanted to do blank invoice, the sales order blank invoice form, Rico, if SOP doesn't ring a bell with you. So I've created one for GP webinar, and again, I can assign that. I could assign it to a customer, a group of customers. It could just be the default, etc. So in this report template maintenance, that's where you can see that. And I'll just bring up some examples, the couple of examples that I did, and then we'll go and generate them. So I've got one of them I created I called it test one. And again, I highlighted this to make this look different and put a different message in there. And then I've got our GP webinar one, another example that I made a form and it did some changes to it. So again, for most of you, you've used this before. And when we're into bringing up a document, we have choices. And again, when we bring up an invoice form, we go to print it and we say print. And at that point, I'm picking off what type of invoice I'm doing. In this particular one, I'm going to do just blank paper. And you can see that because I've set it up that it's going to default right to template, not to standard. So template, and I can go ahead and have that print to screen. And so that'll bring up that Word document. And there we have that doc, one of the templates.
That's a cool feature, but you know what? we have quite a similar thing on our end.
Awesome.
It's a little bit different, but it's still Word, which does the heavy lifting. So let me show you what we could do. So let me go to our posted sales invoices. So in my posted documents, I have a posted sales invoice. It's of course already prepared because I don't want to start from scratch here. So I would go to my invoice here, to Royal Cloud, and they got an invoice for, I think, 2 items that we sold them. Oh, it's just 1 item. So we sold this item to them. And if I would go, I could go and print and send it directly. Right now, I don't want to send the email right now. All I want to do is print it. And what you can see now is a canned report. So this comes out of the box with the system. And maybe you like it and maybe you don't like it. So this is a report that comes out of the box. It has, of course, all the details that you would need, like an invoice number. It has a logo on it. It has a couple of references. The line information is all here, GST, PST, all the things that you need. But maybe you feel, this is like all grayish. I want to pep it up a little bit. I want to make it nicer for the customer. I hit the wrong button here, so sorry. Let me get this back to 100%. So now we have, let's say for this customer, I want to actually make a custom template only for this customer. I can make it, like I can change the template for everyone, but I can actually define a template for a specific customer. So let's go and do that. So for this customer, I can go and open up the customer directly from here, and in the customer itself, I can navigate to my customer document layouts. And then in that screen, we can see all the layouts that will be used. So right now, this is all the standards, like all the report IDs and everything that we are defined for every customer. That's what it's applied here. But now let's say for this customer, I want to modify the layout. So the system comes already with out of the box a couple of additional layouts. So let me just select this guy here and let's see what it looks like if I would use this as my template. So if I run the report, I could test run it, so it's the same invoice number, preview. We can see that this is already a totally different layout. So now at least it's a little bit more colorful. It has still all the details that I would need, but it at least has some color, right? Because I don't like all the gray and black stuff. So it's a little bit better. But you know what? I prefer actually to have like the stuff in green because green is more positive. So let me just create a copy of that and make it my own template. So what I would do is I would go and, process. I would copy this one. I would give it a proper name. Edit list. So this is my green one. And now I would go to layout and export the layout. Takes a second to download the file itself. And now if I open this, I guess would look pretty familiar to what you would do in GP. So it's exporting the Word layout, and it's also containing the entire XML structure, like the structure behind the fields. Like you don't need to worry about like where it's coming from. All these fields are already predefined. So all I want to do for now is make this a different color. So I would change this guy to green. And I also want to have this shaded all in green. So I would go to table design, put a shade here in green. So that should be a little bit more positive. And now I would like to actually have a frame around these tables because I don't like when it's all sitting a little bit in limbo there. And I don't need a job number on my invoice because I don't even have jobs in my system. So all I would do is basically just delete these values here and leave this blank. So that would be all my modifications for now. I could go crazy and add more fields, move fields around and stuff, right? But I think you get the idea that this is how you would modify a layout. All I need to do now is to save this layout. So this is saved in my downloads. What I will do now is import the layout choosing the layout from my downloads. And if I would run the process from here, let's do a test run to see if I like it. Preview. Now I'm getting the invoice all with my modifications, with my green, my lines around on this one. So all my changes have been applied. So if I would go now back to my customer, I would say, okay, for this customer, please always print this one, but for everyone else, still do the old layout. So
Awesome. That seemed pretty straightforward, Rico.
yep,
So
it's super helpful.
Rico, we're almost out of time, and I thought maybe we would jump to our last item, which you'll just be able to show because I can't show that, the connectivity with Outlook. Do you mind if we
Yes,
jump to that? Because in case there are questions at the
yes,
end.
absolutely. So let me go to my Outlook, and the scenario that I want to talk about is, let's say you have a customer who is sending you an email and asking you for a new quote or asking you for like new things to go on, and you have a gut feeling saying, I don't know, did this customer pay all the invoices? And I feel like I sent a quote exactly for this like 2 weeks ago. Let me just check. So right now I'm in my Outlook, and depending on the email address, the system is actually capable of connecting Outlook to Business Central. So all I need to do is go from here and find my Outlook, my contact insights. So it will connect to Business Central, even though I'm not opening my browser, right? So my browser is still in the corner here, and I can see all the details which are associated to the customer with this email address. So I can see that he owes me like $12,000. I can see the balance. I can see all the statistics that I need to see for this customer right from my Outlook. And then my gut feeling tells me, I sent this quote a little bit earlier. Let's go and dig into it and figure out what quotes we had. So let's go through this one. And so he's asking for like 2 swivel chairs and a conference table. And guess what? This is exactly what we have on here. So this quote basically shows me all the things that he's asking for. So I wonder if I should send him a new quote, just make it a little bit bigger here, or if I just send him the quote again. So I would go send the quote via email, and it would generate a new email for me, attaching the quote from here directly to my Outlook email. It takes a while to render a report, to create the email. Here we go. It gives me like the summary in my email directly, so I can still modify all this, but it also has the layout for the quote already attached. So I can just shoot over the email with the quote again, and off we go. Saves me a lot of time because I don't even need to go to Business Central and navigate in there.
Wow, that's very impressive, Rico. I really like that feature. That's great to know, be able to see the statistics about that customer right from your Outlook. That's awesome.
Perfect.
All right, well, I'm going to go back over to if Tess, you can make me presenter, and we'll just finish up with the PowerPoint. And Tess, if there are any questions, you can read them out. I'll just kind of go over this and we'll share out some information. There's lots of great information up on our website. Again, if you're interested in learning more about Business Central, or you want to go read some of our blogs, we've got lots of great articles up there about Dynamics GP and about Business Central. We just finished publishing an e-guide, so lots of great information in that e-guide for you as well and moving your business forward. You can have a free trial of Business Central, and there's also a CSP EP offer when your renewal comes up that you can look into. And we have published up our overall demo that Rico did a few weeks ago, and those are up on YouTube, so you can access all of that great information. Tess, were there any questions?
Yeah, there are. So I'll just read out the first one here to hopefully answer them in the time that we have left. So the first one is, Is there a report or audit trail to provide our auditors at the end of the year if account segments are changed?
Account, you mean like the dimensions? So I guess this question ties into when if you change, like renamed the entire
Yeah,
account
like when
or the
we
account.
had to rename those accounts. Right.
I think there is no audit trail on the actual transaction. However, there is an audit trail on like we can turn on and change log on all the master records. So if you would change like the description or the name or even the number of the account, you would see who changed the account from what value to another value. So yes, there is an audit trail, not on a transaction, but on the master record itself, for sure.
Okay, sounds good. The next one is, can you show how you would handle multiple payers for a service? And then there's an example that I'll say. So a service is for example, a service is provided that costs $150 to a client. The client is invoiced for $75. The insurance company is invoiced $50 and the balance is paid by another party. We would like to show all three payers recorded, separate invoices sent to all payers, and the payments would settle to the exact service provided for the client.
I think there are ways around it. It sounds a little bit, from what I'm hearing, it sounds a little bit like a job where it ties together. It might be, when you say service, it might be just a dimension. It might be something in a jobs module. That there are definitely ways to charge from one particular instance to multiple customers. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, we've done that for other insurance companies that, or restoration companies that experience the same thing. So it is possible to do it. There is a bit of a small minor adjustment to the system to allow it because it's typically expecting one invoice, one payer.
Awesome. The next question is, in GP, we use a third-party tool, Extender, to add user-defined fields. How will Business Central handle this? Do we need third-party tool, or can this be done out of the box?
Like Business Central has kind of two approaches on that. So for example, on the item card, what I see a lot is, or what I've seen in the past is that we had to build like a ton of fields on the item card where you want to put like a category, like a measurement, like a weight, a color, and all that kind of stuff on there. And for a couple of versions, or since a couple of versions, Microsoft introduced the attributes. So in this case, we have like an additional table which is relational information to the item. So you wouldn't create like actual fields on there, but it is enhanced information which is where you are able to put these additional information in. So you wouldn't need to do that. If you really need to have like a total different custom field on that, this is usually a piece that we would do on the developer side. And there might be tools out there. So one thing that is a good piece about Business Central is that you have all these enhancements and all these additional extensions that you could plug in. I'm pretty certain that there is a tool which would also allow you to add custom fields in these areas. So, but I don't know if a tool for that from the top of my head, but I'm pretty certain there is something that would help you with that.
Awesome, thanks, Rico. The next question is, can you show how smart lists look in Dynamics 365 Business Central?
That's a good one. I bet you Googled if there are smart lists in Business Central, and they are coming and they are in the system already, but I can't really demo them because they are not 100% rolled out yet in my demo environment. But I know that they are there, and there will be enhancements, but they are not released yet. So unfortunately, I can't demo it right now.
That is a great question, and that's a tool that you're familiar with in GP, and you'll have that tool available to you in Business Central, and you'll use that tool to look at your history that comes from GP.
That's awesome. So if there's no other questions that have come in, we'll give everyone another few seconds to finish typing if they are, but otherwise, we will be sending out a recording of this and Tracy's PowerPoint early next week. And check out those links in her PowerPoint, because there's a lot of information on our site about this topic. So no other questions have come in. So thank you, Rico and Tracy.
Well, thank you, Tess. Thank you, Rico, and thank you, Tony.
Silent listener.
Yes, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great day.
Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.